There's something about the twin flame journey that pulls you in so deeply. It's hard to explain it in words. It's not like any regular relationship. It's not something your mind can fully understand because it doesn't just live in the mind, it lives in the soul. And when that kind of connection shows up, when it lands in your life like lightning, it shakes everything loose. It wakes you up in a way nothing else ever has. But here's the thing. While that awakening is magical, it can also feel terrifying, especially for the divine masculine. This is the part that confuses a lot of people on the twin flame path. You feel the connection, you know it's real, you see the signs, the synchronicities, the pull that never fades. And for a moment, it seems like he feels it too. He opens up, he softens, he lets you in, and then he runs. That push and pull cycle can leave you wondering what you did wrong or whether he ever really felt it at all. But the truth is, running isn't about lack of love. It's about fear, a deep soul-level fear, one that even he might not fully understand. So let's dive into that. Let's unpack why the divine masculine runner fears the very thing that could set him free. Number 1, he's scared of losing control. For most of his life, the divine masculine has been conditioned to stay in control. Emotions? Keep them in check. Vulnerability? That's weakness. Pain? Bury it and move on. He's been taught to carry everything without complaining, to hold everything together even when it's falling apart inside him. So when the twin flame connection comes along, it doesn't just crack open his heart. It completely dismantles everything he thought he knew about love, safety, and who he is. Suddenly, he's not the one steering anymore. His emotions start surfacing without warning. He starts caring more deeply than he ever has before. And that scares him. Control gives him a false sense of safety. It allows him to feel like he can predict what's coming, protect himself from pain, and avoid being at the mercy of someone else. But this connection, your connection, doesn't play by those rules. It bypasses logic. It breaks down barriers. It asks him to surrender. And surrender to him feels like drowning. So he pulls back. He distances himself, not because he doesn't care, but because he cares too much. And the thought of not being able to control the outcome terrifies him. What if he loses you? What if he's not enough? What if he lets himself fall completely? And then it all goes wrong. It's easier, in his mind, to run than to risk being fully seen and possibly broken. This fear of losing control is often unconscious. He might not realize it's what's driving him to retreat. He might tell himself he's just not ready or that something feels off. But beneath all that, what he's really saying is, I don't know how to be this open. I don't know how to hold this much emotion without losing myself. And until he feels safe enough to let go, he'll keep grasping for control, even if it means pushing away the very thing he wants most. Number 2, he doesn't feel worthy of the connection. One of the heaviest wounds the divine masculine carries is the belief that he isn't enough. This doesn't always show on the surface. He might look confident, composed, and even emotionally detached. But underneath that is often a scared, wounded boy who never felt truly seen. Maybe he grew up feeling like he had to earn love. Maybe he was made to believe that his value was tied to what he achieved, how strong he appeared, or how much he could provide. So when the twin flame connection arrives, a love that sees him so deeply, loves him so purely, and accepts even the parts he spent his life hiding, it stirs something painful. It awakens his inner shame. It makes him feel exposed. And instead of leaning in, he pulls away. Because if you see the real him, he fears you'll leave. He thinks, how could someone like her love someone like me? Even if he doesn't say it, that thought echoes in the background. He doubts whether he's capable of showing up the way he wants to. He fears that if he stays, you'll eventually see through him and be disappointed. This fear can be so strong that it drives him to sabotage the connection. He might pick fights. He might retreat into work, distractions, or even another relationship. Not because he doesn't care, but because he doesn't feel like he can rise to the level of love he's being offered. But here's the truth. Your love doesn't demand perfection. It never did. It only asks for truth, for presence, for growth. Still, until he learns to see himself through more compassionate eyes, until he begins to heal the story of unworthiness that he's been carrying, he'll struggle to accept the kind of love that meets him on a soul level. And so he runs, not from you, but from the parts of himself he believes aren't lovable. Number 3, he's afraid of losing his identity. When you've spent your whole life building a version of yourself based on external expectations, the twin flame connection can feel like a threat. Not to your heart, but to your identity. The divine masculine often wraps his sense of self around roles: provider, protector, achiever, fixer. He's been taught to be the strong one, the logical one, the one who doesn't waver. So when he meets his twin flame and that connection begins shaking the foundation of who he thought he was, it can feel like the ground is being ripped from beneath him. You see, this connection doesn't just ask for love, it asks for transformation. It mirrors back everything he's been avoiding. It shows him where he's been living out of alignment with his soul. It challenges the masks he wears, the ones that made him feel safe in the world. And for someone who's built an entire life around those masks, taking them off can feel like death. Because if he's not who he thought he was, then who is he? This is why the twin flame journey is so intense. It doesn't just trigger wounds. It strips you bare. It invites you to step into your truest, rawest self, without guarantees, without the safety nets of ego or pretense. But that kind of rebirth doesn't happen overnight. It requires him to let go of what's familiar, to question everything, to shed the old version of himself and step into the unknown. And that's terrifying. It's not that he doesn't want to grow, it's that he's afraid of what he'll have to lose in the process. His job, his image, his reputation, even the relationships or routines that no longer fit who he's becoming. All of it feels like a risk. So instead of facing that inner storm, he runs. Back to comfort, back to what's predictable, even if it no longer feels alive. But eventually the dissonance grows too loud. The old identity starts to feel too small. And that's when he begins to return, not just to you, but to his own soul. Number 4, he doesn't understand what he's feeling. Most divine masculines are not used to the kind of emotional intensity that comes with a twin flame bond. It's not just love, it's remembrance. It's a soul recognition so deep, it cracks open the heart without warning. And for someone who's been taught to stay in their head, that sudden flood of feeling can feel overwhelming. He doesn't just feel drawn to you, he feels consumed. And because he's never experienced anything like this before, he doesn't know what to do with it. His mind races to make sense of it. He tries to label it, explain it, or shove it into a box that makes logical sense. But this connection defies logic. It's not something that can be rationalized. It's something that has to be felt. And that's the problem. Feeling is foreign territory for him. So instead of leaning into the emotion, he detaches. He might ghost. He might say things that sound cold or confusing. But what's really happening is that he's short-circuiting inside. He doesn't have the tools or the language to process what he's experiencing. So he shuts down. It's not rejection. It's overload. Imagine standing in front of a mirror that shows you every part of yourself. Your beauty, your flaws, your deepest fears. That's what being with you feels like for him. And without the inner structure to hold that, he gets scared. He backs away, not because he doesn't want to feel, but because he doesn't know how. This is why space is sometimes necessary. He needs time to process what this connection is awakening in him. He needs room to breathe, to explore these feelings in a way that feels safe. But the feelings don't go away. They stay with him. They call to him. They shift something inside of him that can't be undone. And eventually, when he's ready, he begins to return. Not as a runner, but as someone who's finally learned how to feel. Number 5, he's still attached to the 3D world. This journey asks for a shift in consciousness. It invites you to move from ego to soul, from fear to trust, from control to surrender. But not everyone is ready to make that shift at the same time. The divine feminine often awakens first. She starts seeing beyond the surface. She feels the spiritual nature of the connection. She knows, deep in her body, in her dreams, in her bones, that this is more than just a relationship. But the divine masculine? He's still navigating the physical world. He's rooted in logic, routine, and what's practical. He's chasing success, trying to build a life that looks right on the outside. He's following the path he was told would make him happy. Career, money, validation, security. So when the twin flame connection enters his life, it disrupts everything. It pulls him out of the known and into the mystical. And that can feel like madness to someone who spent his life trusting what he can see, touch, and prove. He might question the signs. He might dismiss the intensity. He might even try to convince himself it was all just infatuation. Because to admit that this love is real would mean admitting that his entire worldview has to change. It would mean walking away from things he once thought mattered. It would mean listening to his soul instead of his mind. And that's a huge leap. He still has ties to people, environments, and belief systems that don't support the kind of inner work the twin flame journey requires. He's scared of losing his standing, scared of what others will think, scared of being labeled crazy or unstable. Because, let's be honest, spiritual awakening isn't something most people are prepared for, especially not in a world that values appearance over authenticity. So he stays where it's safe, where it's normal, where he doesn't have to question his life too deeply. But the soul doesn't stop calling just because the mind is afraid. That pull toward you, the twin flame, the mirror, isn't something he can escape forever. Eventually, the life he's built starts to feel empty. The noise of the outer world no longer drowns out the truth in his heart. And little by little, he begins to awaken. Not because he's forced to, but because his soul was always designed to. Until then, his attachment to the 3D world will keep pulling him back. But don't mistake delay for denial. The seed has already been planted. And once that happens, there's no going back to sleep. Number 6, he's processing deep past life and inner child wounds. One of the most powerful aspects of the twin flame connection is that it brings buried wounds to the surface. This love doesn't just feel good, it also stirs up everything that's been left unresolved. Childhood pain, ancestral trauma, past life karma, all of it begins to rise when the soul recognizes its mirror. For the divine masculine, this process can feel like emotional whiplash. He's suddenly hit with feelings he doesn't understand: grief, guilt, rage, abandonment, unworthiness. And because he may not have learned how to safely process emotions, his first instinct is to escape them, to run. Many of these wounds trace back to his inner child, the part of him that didn't feel protected, heard, or loved. That part of him learned to put on armor, to stay strong, to survive. But your connection shines light on those hidden parts. It invites them to be felt, to be healed, to be held with love. But that kind of emotional excavation is messy. It brings up memories he thought he forgot, patterns he didn't realize were running his life. And often it happens so fast and so strongly that he doesn't know how to handle it. So again, he chooses distance. It's not about avoiding you, it's about avoiding what you represent. You are the trigger, the activator, the mirror. You awaken the pain, but also the power. Sometimes these wounds go even deeper than this lifetime. Twin flames often carry shared karmic themes from past incarnations, and even if he doesn't consciously believe in past lives, he feels the weight of it. The fear of abandonment, the fear of loss, the fear of failing you again. These emotions live in the soul, and they don't need logic to be real. When he runs, it's not because he wants to hurt you. It's because the pain inside him feels too big to face. But this journey isn't about escaping the pain, it's about healing it. And while he may resist that at first, the connection won't let him forget. With time, space, and support, he begins to understand that the emotions aren't the enemy. They're the doorway. And through that doorway lies the very union he's always longed for. Number 7, he feels the pressure of the connection and doesn't want to fail. Here's something that's not talked about enough. Sometimes the divine masculine runs not because he doesn't care, but because he cares so deeply that he's afraid to mess it up. From the outside, his silence or distance may look like apathy, but inside, he's overwhelmed with the pressure to be enough, to rise into the version of himself that he knows this connection demands. He senses the weight of it, even if he can't put it into words. He sees how much you believe in him, how much you love him. And instead of that making him feel empowered, it makes him feel afraid. Afraid that he'll disappoint you. Afraid that he won't be able to live up to the spiritual partnership he knows this could be. He doesn't just want to be a boyfriend or a partner. Deep down, he wants to be your equal, your match, your mirror. And if he doesn't feel ready for that, emotionally, mentally, or spiritually, he'll start pulling away. Not because he doesn't see the potential, but because he sees it so clearly that it scares him. He knows that with you, there's no halfway, No masks, no pretending. This isn't a relationship he can coast through. It asks for everything: presence, growth, accountability. And if he's not there yet, he'll feel the distance between who he is now and who he needs to become. And that gap, that's where the fear lives. He might convince himself that walking away is better than staying and failing. He might try to protect you from his unfinished parts. But beneath that, what he really needs is to learn that he's allowed to grow imperfectly. That love doesn't require perfection, it requires honesty. Until he comes to terms with his own humanity, his own shadow, and his own process, he'll keep mistaking your belief in him as pressure instead of inspiration. But one day he'll realize you never asked him to be perfect. You only asked him to be real. And when he's ready to meet himself fully, he'll be ready to meet you again.